What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you another Edison format deck profile. This time I'm profiling my take on WelleDad. I think it's one of the best decks in the format, kind of like secretly. Deck's really good, and we're just going to get right into it. I have a full 3 copies of Mystic Tomato here. I love Mystic Tomato. I think it just searches so many powerful cards. Card's just excellent. It's kind of like the glue of the deck, in my opinion. I see a lot of lists playing 1 or 2 of them, but I think 3 is really important. I think just being able to find the Krebons early, find your power cards like Destiny Hero Malicious, and get some combos going in the early game is really strong. So 3 Mystic Tomato, it's just kind of like gets everything going for this deck. I like to play 2 copies of Dark Grepher here. I think Grepher is like pretty solid. I think just being able to find what you need, get them in the graveyard. I like being super aggressive in these like nightmare dad style of decks. There's an old school term for you guys out there. These nightmares dark arm decks is like really interesting. I think I just want to be able to be super aggressive with Malicious and Plague Spreader. Being able to get those both in the graveyard via Dark Grepher is just really powerful in the early game, and I don't mind like the downside of drawing a second one in the late game. I think the upside of just taking a game over on turn 1 is really strong with Dark Grepher. So really strong. I like to just be aggressive with this card, and I like the 2 copies. It's been really good. Only 1 copy of Armageddon Knight. A lot of people play 2 in these WelleDad style of decks, but I think just being able to fetch this card off of Mystic Tomato makes the tomato like worth playing over, the third tomato worth playing over like the second Armageddon, in my opinion. Just because this card doesn't do too much standing alone, you know, like it can send a Malicious in the grave, and then like you have to have like some sort of extender to like keep pushing. But the card just gets Krebons in the grave, which is strong, and it gets Plague and Malicious in the grave. So I think the card's fine on its own, but I do prefer drawing Dark Grepher in the early game. In Mystic Tomato, I definitely I prefer drawing. So just 1 copy of Armageddon. You can get it off Tomato. You can search it. It's a good card. All 3 copies of Krebons. This card is just really important to have access to. You don't want your Power Wells to be dead, and just being able to have full access to the Krebons is strong. Of course, you can also search them off of Mystic Tomato, so this version, this list of mine, is never going to have a problem with the Power Wells being dead, and I think that's when the deck is at its strongest, when you just have access to Power Well just as a super powerful card. Of course, we're boarding up to 3 copies of Krebons, but most likely 1 to 2. So Krebon's really strong, good tuner on its own, one of the better tuners in the format. So, yeah, just standalone solid card. I'm fine with playing all 3 for the consistency of it. A little zombie engine here, 2 copies of Goblin Zombie. It's just really important. Goblin Zombie just gets a lot of value, gives some inevitability in the late game, and can get you out going early off of like a tomato, get Goblin Zombie, and just start doing some nasty stuff. So I like the copy of Mizuki as well as Plague Spreader Zombie. This is just a small zombie engine I like to play in my dark decks that feature Mystic Tomato. Just gives you access to like an engine out of nowhere, and it gives you a lot of inevitability in the late game, as I mentioned, with Mizuki and Plague, and you never really run out of cards because of Goblin Zombie. So card's just really powerful. Just get your deck going, and this card's really strong in combination with Krebons. Being able to just normal summon Krebons, it lives, and then like normal summon Goblin Zombie in the following turn. Like that's a card, that's a way to like unbrick your hands that are a little bit cloggy, and like you can start pressuring your opponent. You get to search Mizuki or Plague. Just really strong in combination with Krebons there. Of course, we're going to run the 1 copy of Stratos, 2 copy of Malicious. Cards are just really powerful. We want to turn 1 Stratos as much as we can. We want to get Malicious in the grave and make some powerful synchro plays in combination with Power Well or Teleport. So Krebon is just going to combo with Malicious very nicely, and Stratos is going to be a great starter in our deck. 1 copy of Caius. I would love to play more copies of this. I mean, it's an excellent card, but it just seems a little bit too cloggy. Everyone, you know, plays 1 to 2, and I landed on 1 in this style of deck. I just want the least amount of bricks possible, and I feel like the card quality in this deck is like very high, and I just don't want to be like bricked in like any way possible. So just electing to play the 1 Caius. There's a lot of ways to solve problems, so I think 1 is just fine. We have Sangan here. Not too much to say. It just searches pretty much everything in the deck. You know, searches Krebons if you need it. Searches Tomato if you like playing a more floaty game. Searches Malicious if you have a discard outlet. Card's great. And you can get off Tomato, which is strong. 2 power cards. Of course, we have Gores. Card's excellent. We don't play a bit too big of a trap lineup. So we have Gores here. And, of course, Darkarm Dragon. This card is awesome. I mean, the deck's named after it, right? WelleDad. It's an excellent card. Let's just win games with it. Very powerful. We then elect to play, and one of my favorite cards in the deck, 3 copies of Upstart Goblin. I like this card in this deck specifically because of the high quality of cards, as I mentioned before. It just gets you into those power cards. Your spell lineup is so powerful, and just finding those one-of spells that just like enable your game plan, right? Just finding the Dark Arm Dragon, finding Teleport, like those cards are so high impact that we need to find them as consistently as possible, and I don't mind giving my opponent 1,000 life to do that. It's just really consistent. I don't see too many people playing this in WelleDad, and I see those sort of downsides it could have, but I just want to find those powerful spell cards and add them to my hand as quickly as possible. So 3 copies of the Upstart Goblin. Of course, we have Emergency Teleport. This is, in my opinion, one of the best cards in the format. This card is just extremely broken. Just being able to summon a tuner out of your deck, like it's no cost, just free extender. Very strong card. And of course, 2 copies of Power Wall. Only 2. It's just going to be good at 2. It's going to do its thing. And with the 3 Krebons, I just think this engine is just really powerful. And yeah, just really strong cards. Power Wall is just a really powerful card. I think this deck is a little underrated, as like those cards are just extremely powerful. Speaking of more powerful cards, Mind Control, Brain Control. These cards are really important to enable this deck's game plan because you need to have some way to offset the downsides of naturally drawing Krebons, and I think these cards just do it great. I also think that Tomato into Krebons becomes a viable play because these cards exist. Normally you wouldn't just grab a Krebons just to make the Power Well live. You can do that, of course, but being able to have one of these cards in hand and then get the Krebons and then take their monster and sync with it, like that's what makes Tomato so powerful. That's what makes the downside of Krebons like much less much better. It's not as bad. So I think these cards are just really strong. They enable the tomatoes. They enable your dead Krebons in hand, which is just so important for this deck's game plan because you need to just get the Krebons in the grave, but sometimes you have to take a minus or like do some sort of bad play to do that. These cards just let you get it in the grave and get value out of it, getting your opponent's monster off the field and creating a board while enabling your game plan. These cards are so important for this deck. Some consistency cards, of course, you have Allure of Darkness and Rhoda. Rhoda is excellent in this deck, just has a lot of sweet targets. And Allure, of course, is just like broken, so. Foolish Burial, sometimes you gotta do it. You gotta send the Krebons to grave just to get the Power Well live. But other times you're just gonna send a Mizuki, you're gonna send a Plague Spreader, you're gonna send a Malicious. A lot of good cards to send. I have 1 copy of Book of Moon for the late game. Book of Life for the late game. I keep doing that. Book of Life for the late game. Card's just really good. It interacts in a very meaningful way while extending your board. It's just a really powerful card. And with only 4 zombies in the deck, you can play 1. I've had a lot of success with that ratio. And it's just such high upside that you want to be able to have access to it. Heavy Storm MST, just solid. We're going to just make our pushes with our teleports and things like that after we resolve these cards. We have 3 copies of Wing Blast for the trap lineup. Just excellent. I think being able to discard Mizuki, being able to discard Malicious, even discarding Krebons, it's kind of a -1, but it gets it in the graveyard, which is important. So this card just a lot of good things to discard, and the Mizuki, the Goblin Zombies floating, getting Mizuki and Plague plus Malicious is just enough for this card. You're always going to have enough cards if you have your engine going to sort of take a hit on your hand, and it just enables your game plan. So really strong card. Oh, another thing. This card's really powerful in these WelleDad style decks because it's so easy to make a level 8 synchro and then just win with it. Whether it be Stardust Dragon, Colossal Fighter, whatever you need for the situation. A lot of times it's Dark End Dragon. And then they can never come back. If you have Dark End Dragon to play with a Wing Blast, anything that threatens the Dark End, of course, you could always have Kaish or something. But, if they set a monster, it just dies to the Dark End. If they, set Backcross to try and deal with it, they get Wing Blasted out of the game. Really powerful card. We have Solemn and Torrential. Standard removal here. As I'm losing my voice. Return from Different Dimension. It's broken. Just draw it, please. Armor. You can't really make this card too much, but it's important to take your opponent's dupe lock. Take one of the frogs and synchro with it with your Krebon. So breaks up the dupe lock. You gotta play it. I think it's good. You can make these 2 with Sangan, the 2 level 5s, Catastor and Android. Of course, you have Bronic and Goyo, and Bronic's really important for your game plan. Revive King Hades, really strong. You can make it so you play it. Great card in the format. And then I'm electing to play Doom Kaiser. This is the 15th card I added, but like with 3 Diva zombie decks in the top 8 of the last Rulers event, it's just good. I think it's narrow, but the upside is so powerful. Being able to monster reborn something mid-combo is just really strong. And I think it's worth it. You have Black Rose, Stardust Dragon, Colossal Fighter, Dark End, Thought Ruler, Red Dragon, Mistworm, and Chimera Tech. Mostly standard. And quick sideboard, as I'm losing my voice here. 2 Cyber Dragon, 2 DD Crow, 2 Doomcal. Stole this tech from Keegan. It's one of my favorite cards in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's just really powerful in these Nightmare Dad style of decks where you can just grind your opponent down and then make one big push and win the game. It kind of really goes well with this deck's game plan. And in the matchup you want it, it's going to be excellent for you. Snipe Hunter, I like playing this in my side of all the tomato decks that I play. Surgical Removal for Oppression, really strong. I like it quite a bit. 2 Skill Drain, really powerful in these decks. A lot of things resolve in the graveyard. All the zombies, Malicious Plague, of course. Dark Arm can still come down. A lot of graveyard effects, Mystic Tomato. You kind of just get to play, and a lot of times they don't. Also really good in combination with Stardust and Colossal Fighter, which I think you can just run away with games similar to Wing Blast. 2 copies of the Pulling the Rug. Gotta protect those tomatoes from Caius. 2 Deep Prison. Really important card. You can kind of go into like a side game plan where you kind of just go into a more controlling deck with the Cyber Dragons, the Doom Cows, the Deep Prisons. Kind of like be more controlling, and I think that's pretty sweet. You have 1 Dust Tornado, and it wouldn't be an SSG profile without the copy of Trap Dust Shoot, as we're going to draw this card and just be better than our opponent, of course, forever and always. That is about it, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about the deck in the comment section below. The deck's pretty sweet. I think it just does awesome things. I think it's really underrated. I think it's very powerful, and just, yeah, it's a pretty sweet deck. Go out and play it. Join the SSG Discord below. That's the best ways to find me. We could talk about this deck, any other decks. I've made a few friends on there, so just message me directly, get in there, suggest some videos you want to see, and I will upload them. That's the best place to reach me. So that is about it, guys. So without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG signing out.